The shooting range was buzzing with energy as people lined up with their rifles and pistols ready to show off their skills. Targets hung far away down the lanes, and the crack of gunfire echoed through the air sharp and confident. Among the crowd stood Anna, a simple woman in plain clothes, quiet and unassuming with her hair pulled back neatly and her hands tucked nervously in her pockets. The men around her noticed her right away, their smirks almost identical. One of them chuckled loud enough for everyone to hear. "What is she doing here? This is no place for beginners." Another added with a grin. "She probably does not even know how to hold a gun." Their laughter rolled through the group, and Anna simply lowered her gaze, not saying a word. She walked to her lane calm and steady as though the whispers behind her did not exist. Her movements were soft, almost too soft for a place filled with booming shots and bragging voices. The arrogant shooters lined up at the next lanes, their eyes gleaming with competition. They raised their weapons with practiced ease, pulling the triggers in rhythm. The sound was deafening as bullets ripped through the air, striking the targets with precision. Bullseye after bullseye rang out, and they looked back at Anna smirking as if daring her to try. Anna quietly picked up a pistol, her fingers wrapping around it with familiarity that went unnoticed. She adjusted her stance with the grace of someone who knew more than she revealed. But the men only saw a timid woman holding a gun they assumed she could not control. One of them called out mockingly, "Careful you, do not shoot the ceiling." Their laughter exploded again, echoing off the walls. Anna ignored them, her eyes fixed only on the distant target, her breathing slow, her hands steady. When she pulled the trigger, the shot rang out crisp and clean. The bullet soared straight through the air, piercing the bullseye dead center without hesitation. The laughter behind her died instantly, swallowed by shock. The men turned their heads toward her lane, their mouths half open, as if they had just seen the impossible. Anna lowered the gun with calm hands, as if she had only taken a breath. The range was silent for a moment, broken only by the faint rustling of paper targets swaying in the distance. Her quiet presence suddenly carried more weight than the thunder of all their shots combined. The men stared at the target, unable to believe what their eyes were showing them. One perfect shot clean through the center, tighter than any of their groups of bullets. For a moment the air itself seemed to pause, as though the range was holding its breath. Anna stood still, her face calm, her hands relaxed at her side. She did not smile, she did not gloat, she simply waited quietly, as if the result meant nothing more than she had expected. But the others could not look away, the arrogance in their eyes flickering into doubt. One of them cleared his throat and forced a laugh. "Beginner's luck," he said, raising his gun again. His next shots rattled into the target quick and loud, but each one landed just outside the center. The sound of his frustration grew louder with every miss. Anna lifted her pistol, again slow, deliberate. She exhaled and fired. Another shot split into the very same bullseye hole she had already made. 2 bullets, 1 mark of feet, so precise that even the instructor at the end of the range stepped closer to see. The arrogant shooters exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado slipping like sand through their fingers. They had walked in expecting to show off their skill, yet a woman they mocked without thought had just outshot them in seconds. And she had done it without a word. Anna lowered her pistol again, her movements steady and unhurried, as if she had all the time in the world. The silence stretched thick across the lanes, only broken by the faint clink of brass casings hitting the floor. The men shifted uneasily, their earlier confidence draining fast. Another shooter stepped forward, trying to reclaim control of the moment. He raised his rifle, aimed with practiced form, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out sharp, but the bullet landed just outside the inner ring of the target. Good but not perfect, and nowhere near Anna's flawless precision. He cursed under his breath, pretending it was just a slip of focus. Anna simply picked up her pistol, once more her breathing measured, her eyes fixed on the paper far downrange. She fired a third time, the bullet carving into the exact center, again tightening the group, so perfectly it looked like a single hole. Gasps rippled through the range. Even those not involved in the contest turned their heads to watch. The instructor walked closer, shaking his head with disbelief, his eyes locked on the target that looked cleaner than anything he had seen all day. Anna did not look back at the men, she did not soak in their shock or their envy. She simply reloaded her pistol with quiet hands, her expression calm. The contrast between her simplicity and the perfection of her shots made her presence heavier than all their noise and boasting combined. The arrogant shooters could not stay silent anymore, their pride burned too hot. One of them slammed his magazine into place with a loud click and barked out, "All right, let us see her beat this." He leveled his weapon and unleashed a rapid string of shots, each bullet punching holes into the target. When the smoke cleared, his paper was riddled with marks clustered near the center, but scattered just enough to show imperfection. He smirked as if he had won something, but his eyes betrayed the doubt simmering beneath his bravado. All eyes turned back to Anna. She stood quietly, her pistol resting at her side, her breathing unbroken by the tension around her. With slow, measured steps, she returned to her lane and raised her weapon. Her focus narrowed, her posture solid, her gaze locked on the bullseye. The crack of her shot rang out once more, and the bullet sliced clean through the same hole her earlier shots had made. The target trembled slightly, as if stunned itself. The room went quiet again, more quiet than before. The sound of the spent casing rolling on the floor seemed louder than the gunfire had been. Even the instructor stopped in his tracks, his eyes glued to the target, his mouth slightly open in awe. The shooters shifted uncomfortably, no laughter on their lips, now only disbelief. Anna lowered her pistol, without a single word, her face calm, as though this display of precision was the most natural thing in the world. The silence she carried pressed down harder than all the noise they had filled the range with earlier. One of the shooters stepped forward, his voice sharp but shaking. "There is no way she can do that again." His words carried less confidence than he intended, and everyone in the room knew it. Anna did not answer. She simply lifted her pistol again. Her breathing slowed, her shoulders relaxed, and with one squeeze of the trigger, another shot tore through the exact same center hole. The paper target now showed 3 shots, so perfectly aligned it looked untouched. A murmur rippled across the range. People who had not been paying attention before now leaned against the stalls to watch. Even the workers behind the counter peeked up with wide eyes. Anna had turned the entire room into her audience, without ever asking for it. The arrogant shooter's face flushed red as he fired again and again, trying to reclaim the spotlight. His bullets scattered across the rings, never touching the bullseye, with the same perfection. The more he fired, the less steady his aim became, frustration tightening his movements. Anna waited quietly until his magazine emptied. Then she raised her pistol once more, her movements so calm it seemed almost unreal in the thick, charged air. Another shot rang out, and again the bullet found the same flawless center, without hesitation. The instructor finally broke the silence, his voice low, but filled with awe. "That is not luck. That is mastery." The room grew quiet as everyone turned toward Anna. Even the arrogant shooters who had been mocking her just minutes ago stood frozen, unsure what to say. They had laughed at her when she first stepped onto the range. Now, they could not look her in the eye. Anna slowly set her pistol down on the bench, her hands steady and calm, as though nothing extraordinary had happened. She gave a small, polite nod to the instructor, then turned to face the others. Her expression never changed, still quiet, still unreadable, but her presence alone now carried weight. One of the shooters finally spoke, his tone low, almost apologetic. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" His question hung in the air unanswered, as Anna only offered a faint smile. Another shooter whispered under his breath, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "She could outshoot anyone here, even the veterans." The statement was bold, yet no one argued, not after what they had just witnessed. The instructor stepped closer, studying Anna with respect in his eyes. "You are not just a beginner, are you?" Anna tilted her head slightly, but said nothing. Her silence was more powerful than any boast could have been. Whispers spread quickly across the range. Some speculated she was former military, others thought she was a professional competitor, keeping her identity hidden. Every guess only added to the mystery that now surrounded her. The arrogant shooter clenched his fists at his sides, trying to regain his pride. But every glance at the target reminded him of the undeniable truth. Anna had done in minutes what he could not achieve after years of practice. The air was thick with tension and awe as Anna calmly loaded another magazine. Without saying a single word, she raised her pistol again, taking aim as the crowd held its breath. The room fell into silence again as Anna lifted the pistol. Her grip was steady, her breathing, even her eyes locked onto the target with absolute focus. The shooters who had mocked her now stood behind her watching in awe. The sound of each shot echoed through the range, sharp and precise. One after another the bullets struck the target, so close together that they nearly carved a single hole. The instructor's jaw tightened as he realized he was witnessing something rare, something he had not seen in years of teaching. Anna lowered her pistol slowly and stepped back. She did not celebrate. She did not smile. She simply returned to her calm stance, as though nothing unusual had happened. The others rushed forward to see the target, their voices rising in disbelief. "This is impossible," one whispered. Another muttered, "She is better than the best shooter we have ever seen." Their arrogance had melted into pure astonishment. The instructor finally addressed her, his voice carrying respect. "Anna, you have a gift. But you already know that, don't you?" Anna remained quiet, her eyes thoughtful, as if weighing his words carefully. The arrogant shooter clenched his jaw, anger and pride battling inside him. He wanted to dismiss her success as luck, but the evidence was right in front of him. Every shot was too clean, too perfect to deny. Anna calmly reloaded and returned to the line, her quiet confidence commanding the room without her saying a word. The others stepped aside, giving her space, no longer daring to laugh or question her abilities. As she raised the pistol, again the tension in the room grew heavier. Everyone knew they were about to witness something extraordinary once more. Anna lifted her arm once more, the pistol steady in her hands. The entire room seemed to hold its breath as she aimed at the furthest target on the range. The distance was so great that even the most experienced shooters often missed or scattered their shots. Without hesitation, Anna fired. The sharp crack rang out, and when the target was reeled in, the crowd gasped. The bullet had struck dead center once again, as if guided by something beyond skill. Whispers filled the room as shooters exchanged stunned glances. "How can she do that?" one asked in disbelief. Nobody answered because none of them had an explanation. The arrogant shooter stepped forward again, his face red with frustration. He grabbed a rifle from the rack and said, "Anyone can get lucky with a pistol. Let's see what you can do with this." He shoved it toward Anna with a smirk. Anna took the rifle without a word. She adjusted the scope, her movements calm and precise. Her eyes scanned the furthest paper target, then she pulled the trigger. The shot thundered through the range, and when the target came back, there was silence. The bullet hole was exactly in the center, once again so clean it was almost unreal. The instructor placed a hand on the arrogant shooter's shoulder, stopping him from saying anything more. He spoke firmly, "This woman is not just skilled, she is exceptional. You all should learn from her instead of doubting her." Anna lowered the rifle and set it gently back on the rack. Her expression remained calm, her silence louder than any words she could have spoken. The entire room now looked at her not with mockery, but with respect mixed with awe. Yet Anna stood still, as though none of it mattered. Her eyes were distant, her mind somewhere else, as though she carried a story that none of them yet knew. The others watched her quietly, waiting for her to speak, but Anna remained silent. It was the instructor who finally asked the question that everyone else was afraid to. "Anna, where did you learn to shoot like that?" She looked at him for a long moment, then back at the targets. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke, but every word carried weight. "I learned because I had to, not because I wanted to." The room grew heavier with her words. The arrogant shooter who had mocked her earlier felt a chill run down his spine. Something in her tone hinted at a past they could not imagine. The instructor nodded slowly, as though he understood more than the others. He turned to the group and said, "You laugh at someone because you think they are weak, but you do not know what they have been through." He looked back at Anna, his eyes steady. "She has more discipline than any of you." Anna walked back to the firing line, and this time she did not aim for paper targets. She pointed to the smallest metal plate at the farthest corner of the range. Few shooters ever dared to try it because the plate was barely visible from their distance. She steadied her breathing, pulled the trigger, and the sharp clang of the bullet hitting the plate echoed through the hall. The sound left the shooters frozen in shock, their mouths open, their doubts shattered. The arrogant shooter lowered his gaze, unable to meet her eyes. For the first time, he felt respect but also fear because he realized Anna's quiet strength was something he could never match. Anna put down the pistol calmly and folded her arms. She said nothing, but the silence that followed was louder than applause. Every person in that room knew they had just witnessed something they would never forget. Anna stood tall in the silence, her calm presence filling the room. No one dared to laugh at her anymore, no one even dared to whisper. The arrogance that had filled the shooting range earlier had vanished, replaced by awe and respect. The instructor stepped closer to her, his voice steady and sincere. Anna, you are beyond extraordinary. You have shown everyone here what true skill and discipline look like. The arrogant shooter, who had mocked her earlier, finally lifted his head. His pride was broken, but in its place was something humbler. He said quietly, I was wrong. You are the best shot I have ever seen. Anna gave him a small nod, but her face remained calm. She had nothing to prove and nothing to gain from their praise. She picked up her bag and slung it over her shoulder, moving toward the exit. The shooters parted to give her space, their eyes following her with silent respect. Even the instructor, who had seen countless skilled marksmen, knew that Anna was in a class of her own. She had left them with a lesson they would carry for the rest of their lives. As Anna stepped outside into the fading light of day, she breathed deeply, the cool air settling around her. She did not smile, she did not boast, she simply walked away quietly. For Anna had always known the truth. Her strength was not in the shots she fired, but in the silence she carried, and the battles she had already won long before she ever stepped into that range.